I'm Dr. Grady with Creation and Worldview Ministries in Orlando, Florida. I used to be an evolutionist, but today I'm a creationist. I was raised on the campus of the University of California, Berkeley as an evolutionist, taught evolution from the 7th grade to the university level. But during all that time of being taught evolution, I was never taught that this was a perfectly valid scientific alternative to the various theories of evolution. The various theories of evolution declare that the Earth and the universe are billions of years old. Evolutionists say that we are just the result of a cosmic accident, that we are just thinking animals with that specific design or purpose. In school, most of us were taught that life began by random chance chemical reactions. Yet when we see the beauty of the Earth, we see the complexity of the living organisms that occupy it. Can we really believe that this is all just an accident? Throughout the world, we are presented with the evidence that calls into question evolutionary beliefs and the assumption of an old age for the Earth and the universe. Over the course of this program, we will present to you evidence that will shake the foundations of the evolutionary worldview. I think you'll agree with me that evolutionists use two terms that you've heard most often. One is called survival of the fittest, the other one natural selection. Well, let's take a look at survival of the fittest. And I will say it this way, survival of the fittest, really? Does survival of the fittest actually prove evolution, or does survival of the fittest actually prove creation? Think with me for a moment. There are not just one theory of evolution, there are many theories of evolution. As a matter of fact, if you had a million evolutionists together in one room, and, well, you'd have 1,000,001 theories of evolution present. They would all agree it's true, but no two would agree on exactly how it happened. And by the time you got through the room, the first guy would have changed his mind. But let's think about what the various theories of evolution actually believe. What are they based upon? Well, the various theories of evolution say that the basic concepts of this evolution would be that particles would have to evolve into elements, that elements would have to form complex chemicals, that complex chemicals would have to form into simple living systems, although there is no such thing as a simple living system. All living systems are complex. Even single-cell organisms are highly complex. If Charles Darwin actually understood how complex a living system was, even at the single-cell level, he wouldn't have believed in evolution himself. And there is really no such thing as a simple living system. But if you do believe in evolution, you would have to believe that these simple living systems would have to form into complex life forms, and that complex life forms, well, would form animal life and eventually, supposedly, into man by some means of some innate property which must be within the material itself, because in evolution, there can be no outside designer, creator, God. Everything must be by random chance and random chance alone. Now, what are the assumptions of the various evolutionary theories? Well, the assumptions of various evolutionary theories would be that non-living chemicals gave rise to living material, that single-celled organisms gave rise to multiple-celled organisms, then invertebrates gave rise to vertebrates. Even when I was an evolutionist, I had a huge problem with that one. How does a creature with a skeleton on the outside become a creature with a skeleton on the inside? I could never figure that out, and no transitional form has ever been found to support it. And you have to have the idea that fish would give rise to amphibians, and amphibians would give rise to reptiles. Reptiles eventually give rise to birds, mammals, and of course, theoretically, eventually man. And what two foundations do the various theories of evolution rest? Because evolution rests on two basic pillars, we might say. The first pillar that supports the evolutionary theory would be time. The evolutionist lives and dies by 8 words. Those 8 words are, give me enough time and anything can happen. Of course, the question must be, has there ever been enough time? And in other sessions, we showed there's never been enough time for evolution to be true. The Earth is in fact, the universe is in fact young. But time, that is an essential column of every evolutionary theory. The other one is chance, that random chance can bring about complexity. Now, first of all, ask yourself a question. Evolutionists will talk about something called the Big Bang. When was the last time you saw an explosion construct a building? And random chance will never produce complexity. Well, these are the two columns, the two pillars upon which evolutionary theories stand. I'd also like you to think about this. Why is it impossible to offer scientific proof of origins? Remember that when we talk about creation versus evolution, we're talking about, did things evolve naturalistically or were they created supernaturally? And why is it impossible to give a direct scientific proof for creation or evolution? You see, it's impossible to prove them directly because the scientific method requires that we test in the present, get repeatable, verifiable results. What's the problem with creation or evolution? If you go back in time, you can't test it. If creation were true, it occurred in the past, and we can't go back and test it. We can't repeat it. We can't observe it. Same thing is true of evolution. You can't go back in time. You can't observe it. You can't repeat it. You can't verify it. And you cannot prove creation or evolution from a direct testing standpoint. A scientific investigator can neither observe nor repeat origins. And even if scientists could create life from non-life or higher kinds from lower kinds, it would not prove that such changes took place in the random past by natural process. Think with me for a moment. Scientists are not prescriptive. Scientists are descriptive. The law of gravity does not work because Isaac Newton figured out a mathematical formula to show how it actually works or its effect. The law of gravity existed before Isaac Newton came up with the formula. So scientists are not prescriptive. Nothing happens because a scientist says so. Scientists are descriptive. We describe what already exists. Now, again, think with me for a moment. Scientists will never, ever create life in a test tube. And there's a very good reason for that. No scientist can speak and have something come into existence where there was nothing. Now, we are approaching the point scientifically with nanotechnology and other things that we can actually manipulate individual atoms. We're at the point of perhaps making molecules and so forth. But think with me for a second. We're not creating anything. We are only manipulating what already exists. Now, let's say that at some point in time, though I doubt that it will ever happen, but let's say at some point in time, scientists are clever enough to actually manipulate atoms and molecules and supposedly make a living cell. Now, the possibility of this is absolutely staggeringly, infinitely zero. However, let's just for a moment say it happened. So if scientists could not create, but could manipulate material and take non-living material and make it alive, what would it prove? What would it prove? It would prove that it takes millions, billions of man and woman hours of intelligence, that you'd have to have almost unlimited resources to get life. And it would disprove evolution and prove creation. And I want to introduce you to Hugo de Vries. Now, Hugo was an evolutionist who wrote a book called Species and Varieties, Their Origin by Mutations, published in 1905. Now, he's an evolutionist. He wants to prove that mutations can produce evolution. And so he writes this book in 1905. And what he actually proved was exactly the opposite. You see, he thought he had proven that macroevolution, that's the huge leaps that supposedly occur from one kind to get to a different kind, but macroevolution, these huge leaps that are supposed to occur at one time, produce the changes from one kind to another, that huge changes of macroevolution would cause apes to become people and so forth. But instead, he accidentally found genes and that mutations always go downhill in nature. He actually disproved evolution, proved creation, proved that mutations are not beneficial, that they're actually destructive. So let's talk about mutations for just a moment. Now, fruit flies are the favorite creature for mutation experiments because they're much smaller than we are, so they're easy to pick on. And they breed and multiply so fast you can do hundreds of generations of these in a relatively short time. So let's take a look at mutations. First of all, what are mutations? Many people don't understand what a mutation is. But a mutation is a copying error. So in science, the word mutation means copying error.